don't need to read the GDPR. You don't need to go through all the steps that we did to try and. Definitely a little boring, and now it's like, there's no other music that I'd rather listen to. So
it's a struggle. It's
totally
hard.
Okay. All right. So welcome to tonight's episode of Social Commerce Give It Up. I'd like to welcome Marissa and Stephen Paysinger as our guests tonight. Thank you guys for being here. So both of them are very accomplished, educated professionals in their own right. They're brother and sister who came back together to merge mutual talents and to create something that's so really important and powerful for entrepreneurs. So just a little bit of a background. Stephen is very accomplished in his law career. He was named as one of the top 40 under 40 attorneys in Colorado in 2019. Marissa is doing some super cool stuff as a copywriter, blogger, a whole bunch of things like that. And what they are uniquely doing together, I will let them reveal as they answer our 14 questions. So welcome, guys, and thank you so much for being here tonight. So excited.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it.
we're super excited to be here.
That is terrific. All right. So are you guys ready for question number one?
Let's dive in.
Let's go.
All right, let's go for it. Okay, first question. What are you doing as a profession, passion, and why?
So, from my perspective, I am a lawyer. I've been admitted to the bar since 2016. I practice mainly in personal injury and business law. And then we've sort of evolved into creating this new business called Entrepreneur Contracts, where we help people with legal templates so that they can, help to make sure that their website is compliant, things like, terms and conditions, privacy policies, disclaimers. And then we're going to broaden that to, a suite of products, things like partnership agreements, LLC operating agreements, a variety of different templates to help people so that they can, enact their legal needs without having to, deal with hiring a lawyer, signing the contract, hoping the lawyer gets it done in time, that kind of thing. No, you just buy the templates, fill in the blanks, and it's done.
Wow, that is incredible. So, Marissa, so what how did you circle back to working on Stephen with this? Like, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how it all comes together with his?
To do this. Yeah, definitely. I started as a freelance copywriter back in 2015. And as I started working with clients, I felt kind of like I wasn't exactly sure what to include in contracts with them, or that I could even negotiate something like an NDA. And I just started to realize as I did that, and then I started my blog a couple years later in 2017, and I didn't really know what the laws were in terms of like, how do I make sure my blog is legal? How do I make sure my copywriting business is legal? And so I finally convinced Steve. He was kind of helping me along the way. And I was like, so many other entrepreneurs need this. And I think we should help them out, because there really needs to be a resource for entrepreneurs that just helps educate them on the laws of starting your own business.
I agree fully. As a starting entrepreneur doing the stuff that I'm doing legally, I have no idea where to begin and what to do, what's okay, what's not, where you'd even look for a form, honestly. So I think that is so phenomenal. So so can you guys just dive a little bit deeper into the business and how we can access it, and kind of like what sort of standardized things that we as starting entrepreneurs would kind of want to look at and want to know, like reach out to you guys for?
Yeah.
Sure. So, really the big thing is every business, every online business, every website, there's a few things that you really have to have. You have to have a privacy policy. You really need a terms and conditions, and you should have some disclaimers too. And this is sort of a foundational piece of the business. It's like the further along you go without these things, the bigger the risk becomes, especially as your business starts to grow, revenues grow, all these different elements. And so if you sort of can just take care of that stuff right off the bat, it sort of lays a perfect cornerstone for your business. And so what we do, we've got a website and it's got a shop on it. And you basically can just go in and buy these templates. It's entrepreneurcontracts.com.
Well,
and
wow.
what we try and do, yeah, nice and simple, right? And same with
I love it.
our kind of our theme is checking your legal boxes or creating these little checklists, steps, so that you can just know, okay, so you get the template. There's going to be a handful of items that you need to fill in that we've got fields for. So it's going to be things like your business name, address, that kind of thing. You fill in the blanks, and then the document will auto fill that information into the rest of the document. And then we've highlighted a few portions that are going to differ from business to business. So this is things like the refund policy. Every business has got a different refund policy. So we'll highlight that in green so people know, okay, I need to pay special attention to this. I'm going to need to modify it so it fits our business specifically. Down the line, as I mentioned, we're going to be offering more templates, but we're also going to be offering sort of workshops and courses to help entrepreneurs empower themselves, learn a few basic tools so that they can be better informed with things like Marissa was saying, with like contract negotiation. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they're going to need to, at some point, negotiate a contract, whether it's, selling goods or setting up, a subscription agreement or an affiliate program, whatever it is.
Yeah, even podcasts or like if you are guest blogging somewhere, having a contract there is really important. And it's also really nice too, like with the disclaimers, different industries need certain disclaimers. Like if you're in the health industry, for example, you really need to have certain disclaimers in place to protect your business.
That's right. Yeah. The health and fitness industry makes a great example because, for example, I think there's a lot of influencers out there who, sort of give a workout, like do these 10 moves and it'll work on, your back or your abs or whatever it is. But I think a lot of times it gets lost in the mix that if you're giving people suggestions on, a workout routine and they get hurt doing that routine and you don't have a disclaimer, theoretically, they could bring an action against you. They could file a claim against you because you didn't give them the proper tools or the proper understanding of the risks of this. You're not telling them that, look, I'm not a physician. I'm not telling you that this is safe. And so, sort of a foundational piece of that health disclaimer is saying you need to consult with your own physician before you start any sort of workout routine. So those are the kind of things that go into it. And obviously every business, as Marissa said, is specific. And so there are different types of disclaimers that each profession is going to want to take a look at.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love it because all the words that you just said, well, I mean, you make them sound very simple, but when you're actually trying to look that up, as someone who doesn't even know where to begin, it just feels like very, very overwhelming.
Totally.
And it's like you're like getting little bits of pieces and you're not sure if you're like should be pulling in more or what you actually need, like you said, Marissa. So
yeah,
absolutely. And what I really like is the user-friendly nature that you're talking about. One of the things that I use in my personal coaching business is standard operating procedures. So self-outlined protocols that you can implement in your life, and it just becomes the new normal, and it's easy to look at, and it's just like going down the check boxes. And I like that because I've gone onto some websites to look at some things like this, and I'm just clicked off because I'm like, wow, I just can't read this. I don't know what this means, and I need a translator or something. But it sounds like you make it very friendly, and I love the component of education. I think the more people can be educated about something, the more empowered they are. And it's part of like just really taking that worry off your business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I am definitely going to be connecting on your site to learn more. And definitely I would like to hear more about when you're launching courses and share them because My personal business is about empowering
Oh no. It cut out a little.
entrepreneurs. Oh, are you guys back? I think we had a
sorry,
bit
yeah,
of
there was a
internet
quick
glitch.
delay there.
Sorry for that.
No, you're
Sorry
I
right.
can edit it out. But yeah, so my business is, my business is a little bit of strategy and intuition, but it's about empowering entrepreneurs to do it more quickly, easily, and with clarity. And this is exactly something that I would want to reference and pull in as a resource for my clients, because it's so important. Actually, one of my mentors this summer went through a big legal situation in terms of one of her coaching clients trying to come back and saying that something was fraudulent. Like, there was no case, but it was a big hassle, a lot of time, a lot of money just to like settle that. So whatever you can put in on the front end, I think just makes it so much easier going forward. So I love what you're doing. It's so exciting.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you're totally right that there's this trend of sort of DIY and learning how to do it yourself and empowering yourself, you know, and that's where things are going. And so rather than, you know, putting all your stock in a lawyer making a contract, it's like, well, why don't I learn some of the basics about this and do it myself? You know, I mean, if you know that you've got the bare bones that have been drafted by a lawyer, and then you just need to fill in the stuff that's pertinent to your business, it makes it a lot easier. And you know, you're talking about these struggles. It's something we went through ourselves. You know, I was starting a different business that was helping people find recreational activities, you know, outdoor recreational activities. And this was right when the GDPR was coming around. That's the European privacy law. And even as a lawyer, I felt this law was so burdensome and so difficult that I didn't feel like I had the tools to comply with it. And so now because, you know, the tables have almost turned. So I said, you know, rather than let this law sort of beat me down and ruin this business, you know, which eventually I did give up in favor of other interests like entrepreneur contracts. Now we're using it as a tool to say, hey, I know other people are struggling with this too. So why don't we try and make it easier? You know, you don't need to read the GDPR. You don't need to go through all the steps that we did to try and develop a tool so that people can easily and quickly and simply comply with it.
Right. But you still want to know what you're responsible for.
Definitely. And I think there's something empowering about the fact of, you know, I'm going to take steps to learn the basics so that I'm informed and can sort of attack this from an informed perspective.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely
it empowers people.
Absolutely. I think you guys are providing the education, the empowerment, and the tools. It's like an all-in-one package, and I love it. So you guys, just to recap, you're going to be doing some courses and some trainings on your website, or
sort of we've got a plan for, you know, releasing that in the next month or two, and sort of our first workshop is going to be about contract drafting and negotiation. So, you know, the first piece is going to be sort of the essentials of a contract, so everyone understands this is what most contracts are going to need. And then the next step is negotiation. You know, what are the techniques that, you know, lawyers and professional negotiators are using when they're trying to procure, you know, the best possible agreement for them and their business? You know, there's a lot of tools. You know, for example, one of the ones that I love to bring up is the, you know, the sort of the Pinocchio effect. So a lot of times when people are negotiating and they're misrepresenting maybe their position or, you know, what they want to get out of it, people tend to go and take extra steps to convince you that something is legitimate or truthful when they know that that may not be the case. So they're going to tell you things like, you know, why would I exaggerate this? You know, it's like,
you know what? I think I've had that experience in dating.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Totally.
The more the guy says something is not this way, it's like, so that way.
Exactly. You know, and so if you can walk into a negotiation knowing a few things like that, it's again
really
what
helps.
totally. It's what we were just talking about. It's empowering. You say, okay, I've seen this before. You're not fooling me.
I'm really excited for the contracts one because it's really going to help break down the like legalese. I mean, you were kind of talking about like feeling like you needed a translator, and it's kind of true.
Yes.
So we're going to break that down.
Well, that is super exciting. So I'm definitely going to keep in touch with you guys because there's so much that I personally want to know. I basically am at ground zero, honestly, about this stuff. So
cool.
It's super cool. So are you guys going to be having lives and stuff like that on your page, or like, is it mainly your website? Do you have like social media connections we can access,
we
or
have Instagram, which is just at Entrepreneur Contracts, and then we might start doing some Facebook Lives.
I think we will, yeah. And I think in addition to that, so we'll have Facebook Lives where we're sort of answering questions or asking people, what's important to them, what do they want to learn about. But then we'll also have a sort of formal course where you can sign up and take the course and learn the, each step. And then if you have questions, you can shoot them at us. So, we're trying to sort of provide a lot of different avenues for people to get information that we think will really help them.
Yeah.
That's going to be exciting. And I can personally say that just from connections and things like that, my personal Facebook page is full of entrepreneurs and coaches and so many people who would benefit from that. So I'm definitely going to be connecting you guys because we all need this. So super, super cool. Well, thank you for sharing that part of things. So now we're getting into the nitty gritty of knowing you guys a little more personally. So some of the more fun questions.
Totally.
Well, I mean, that was a pretty cool question. It was very, very cool. So now that we know all the amazing stuff that you guys are doing, what would you never want to do as a profession for work, that type of thing? Is there something that's just like an absolute no for you guys?
Sure. So this is one that I felt pretty strongly about, and it's something that I've had to deal with as being a lawyer, and that's sort of compromise my integrity. I think in the legal profession, there's a lot of pressure to get the win, but also sort of bend the truth a little bit or present your case in a way that may not be radically transparent. And that's something I've really struggled with personally because ever since I was a little kid, I've always been sort of really interested in this idea of capital T truth, like real genuine truth. And I understand that at some level, no individual person is ever going to be able to reach that level of really understanding, capital truth. But at the same time, I felt that I was unwilling to sort of be one of these slimy lawyers that says, I don't care what the truth is. I'm going to say whatever I need to say to get the best result for my client. That's not me. And so, if I'm leaving clients on the table there or leaving money on the table there, I'm okay with that because I know I'll be able to go to sleep at night and be comfortable with the person that I am, So when I think about, something that I would never do professionally, it's compromise my integrity, no doubt about it.
I appreciate that. And I love your authenticity. You do actually present huge integrity. I love that. I grew up with parents who were like very, very simple, straightforward, good people, and it was 1000% about the truth. And it still shocks me when people completely,
right,
aren't that. So much aren't that. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. And what about you, Marissa?
I have more of a silly answer, but I feel like I would really struggle with anything with math, like engineering or like anything with math, because I am a word person. I'm a literature girl, like give me the words and keep me away from the equations.
I totally hear that. I know for some reason I jumped into science. And so that was like, put a bit of math, and really I'm more like throw the paint on the canvas and hang it on the wall. And
totally.
Well, and I love science. I really like reading about like the theory of science, like but trying to get into the nitty gritty of the equation of making it happen is a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Could not handle physics, was not a fan of calculus. I hear you. Totally. But words, I love words. Could do words all the time, for sure. Okay, awesome. Okay. So next question for you guys. Do you guys like going into bookstores, libraries, and being around real books? I know that so much is virtual right now. Like, well,
Yes.
do we have to ask that question? Are those real?
I'm currently trying to build my own library in my second room. I have 4 bookcases full of just all kinds of things. This is my philosophy and kind of literary theory bookcase. I've got mythology and poetry over there, like the history of the novel over there. So
I love it. That is so amazing. And that was actually one of my secret dreams, is to someday have a library. So you're actually doing it. That is like so cool. I so love it. And I love the
She
theme.
is doing it, and I just have to add that every time she moves, I become the person responsible for helping her move all those books.
Yeah,
it really is. It's fun to be able to, physically thumb through the books. It's something tangible,
absolutely.
Yes.
Electronic digital format is fantastic for the sort of expediency. It's very convenient, but I just don't think there's anything that truly replaces that feeling of like open, the smell you get when you open a good book. It's just so satisfying to touch it,
Well, and I feel like you
exactly
retain the information as well on
formats.
So
I agree.
Reading a physical book, I think, makes such a difference.
It does. It just feels like, I don't know, for me, I feel like I can actually comprehend it, merge with it a lot more than just like on the screen. It's just not the same.
Totally.
Yeah, and you can bend the page. I mean, I'm someone who like writes in them and bends all the
Yeah. That's why you need your own library, right?
Yeah. Well, and I just think like being able to reference something really quick is important, and it's so much harder to do that, I think, on a digital format. So yes,
I agree. That's awesome. So we're actually looking at your library. I love that. And thanks for helping out with that, Steve.
Off in the podcast so everyone could see.
Awesome. Okay, I love that. What is the most daring thing that you have done?
That's a good question.
What do you think?
Well, I went skinny dipping in Spain. That was pretty
Oh, wow.
But I used to ride horses, and I did hunter jumper, which is where you go over jumps. And so taking a 1,000-pound animal over a 4-foot jump was pretty daring, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I love watching that, those events.
And it's one of those things where, if you're watching someone who is good at it, it looks very easy. Like, oh yeah, of course, you're just riding the horse. The horse knows to jump over. But when you're on the horse and, it's your first time doing it, it's like, that's pretty scary,
I personally always, even like watching it on TV, I was like always holding my breath until the person got on the other side and the horse and the person were still together. Everybody was good.
You definitely have to work
for sure.
Yeah,
that's so cool. And what about you, Steve?
So for me, it's being a whitewater raft guide. And so it's interesting. And so I do this with fishing. And I'm actually technically not a certified guide yet, but I have been working towards that. I've been taking courses, and I would be certified if it weren't for coronavirus.
Yeah.
That was, the final step of the certification process has been a long time because of that. But I do this with fly fishing, combining whitewater rafting and fly fishing. And so when I first started doing it, when I first heard about this activity, I'm thinking in my mind, like, God, whitewater rafting and fly fishing at the same time. Like, it's just seemed like
a big question that comes forward is, how do you actually catch a fish in those waters?
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, aren't you just getting tangled? And, it's like, it's all bumpy. And, do you really have time for that? And then, so I did it for the first time, and I was just totally blown away. And this is actually something that I'll be touching on a little bit later, but to me, it was just a sort of a really special moment in my life when I realized that, like, sometimes your mind creates an impression of what's going to happen, and it's not reality, So often the thought of doing something difficult ends up being more difficult than the actual task itself, and then you get out there and you realize, whoa, not only is this not as bad as I expected, but it's kind of fun, or really fun, so
Wow.
I never thought I would be a guy who, guides whitewater rafting trips while fly fishing, but now here I am. It's one of my favorite things to
And
do.
offered some legal contracts to the.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You have to sign a liability waiver before you get on the boat. No doubt about it.
That's like everything, like the trifecta,
Right?
right? So did you catch any fish?
Oh, yeah. Lots of fish. Lots of fish. And actually, it's interesting because you get an opportunity to fish a lot more water on the boat, because not only are you, going a lot faster than you could on your feet, but when you're flowing down the river,
Yeah.
a lot of times you get to go through private property that you can't access on foot.
Ah.
But when you're rafting, as long as you don't drop the anchor, another, trespassing legal issue, as long as you don't drop the anchor on that private property, you're good. So, and a lot of times the best fishing is on the private property. So it's been a really
Oh, wow. That's a cool secret.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's seen a lot of really cool animals too, like a breeding pair of bald eagles.
Yep.
Some bears.
A bear cub, actually.
Yeah.
This cub was no
Oh,
bigger than like, an average sized dog, maybe, 20, 30.
oh, wow. That's
Down the
amazing.
side of the river. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome. It came around a bend, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my
Mhm.
God, there's a bear,
And that's when you're happy that you're not on foot. And
Right,
that you're
exactly.
Oh, yes. You don't want to
Because if
meet
you see
Mama
the
Bear.
cub, Mama Bear is here.
Exactly. And you're safely on the boat with fish, so that's all great.
Exactly.
Oh, that is really cool. I'm going to check that out. I've never heard of it before. I always thought like fly fishing was kind of like standing in the stream and just casting away. And
Right. That was my impression too, and now it's like, wow, it's opened up a whole new world, So if anyone out there, everyone ever wants to come do some, rafting and fly fishing in Colorado, you know who to
Yeah.
contact.
definitely hook you up for sure. Oh, very cool. All right. What is something you wish that you had said yes to?
Ooh, I feel like I wish that I would have said yes to the whole entrepreneurial path earlier, because I
Mhm.
started hearing about copywriting when I was still an undergrad, and I honestly didn't believe that it was possible. I was like, who in the world would pay it that much for writing? And then
Mhm.
I went to grad school, and I thought that I was going to be a teacher. My first master's was in education, and I tried that, and I really loved teaching, but I think the politics were a little too much. And so
Mhm.
then after my second one, I was trying to decide if I was going to go for a PhD and be a professor, or go out into corporate America. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
America sounds not great.
Hmm.
So I wish I had started copywriting earlier.
Wow. So how did you start that?
So after I graduated with my second master's, I realized that I did not want to go into corporate America. And so I just kind of took a leap, and I was able to do pretty well my first month. And so I was like, I can definitely make this work. And so I just kept going and kept growing,
And that's the
and
key, to
now
keep
we're
going.
here. Yeah, that is the key. Yeah.
Wow.
Understanding that failure is just kind of a part of what you have to go through.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, you guys definitely are extremely educated traditionally, but also very big mindset, because mindset is everything, especially in the entrepreneurship thing.
Totally.
So absolutely. I love that. That's so cool. And so your turn. What do you wish you had said yes to? Is there anything?
So my answer is a little silly, but obviously everyone in their life can look back, and there's a lot of big moments where you say, oh boy, I wish I would have said yes. I wish I would have done that. But for me, I have a particular camping trip where my friend was cooking some amazing cheeseburgers. And he said, you want one or two? And I'm thinking, oh, this is just another camping cheeseburger. It's not a big deal. I'm not that hungry. I'll just have one. No, this guy is like a pro sous chef. He's got all of the seasoning. He can put some perfect in there. And so I took one bite of this cheeseburger, and I'm like, oh, I made a huge mistake. Why did I say I only want one? Of course I want two. So when you're camping and they're cooking a cheeseburger, always take two. You got to live a little bit, right?
Clearly, that was a good cheeseburger, and the memory still haunts you.
Oh,
so I will
it
absolutely
haunts me
say
every
yes. Awesome. Um, so So what was a pivotal moment that changed something in a big way for you?
So for me, I had a really life-changing experience when I was in undergrad. I went to a school called Metropolitan State University of Denver. It's a kind of a small commuter college in Denver, and they had this great. So to just take a step back, I was an anthropology major. I'm really interested in all these different aspects of how humans sort of came to be the way we are, and sort of crossed
Mhm.
this hurdle from animal to a more sort of sentient being. And one of the internships that they offered as a part of this anthropology program was going to spend 2 months living on an Indian reservation and sort of immersing yourself in their daily life, and learning about their practices, both culturally, traditionally, just to sort of get an idea that there are radically different ways of living, even within our own state. So, for example, I didn't even know there were Indian reservations in Colorado. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this tribe is, you know, has this reservation, and they're a very big part of this area of the state. And so I went down there and I was just blown away by so many different aspects of this. I'll be honest, like I was expecting a lot of the natives down there to be a little unsure or unwelcoming about, a group
Mhm.
of 20 or so, 20-year-old white kids coming onto their reservation and learning about them. And, there was definitely some of that, no doubt. There were definitely some people who
Mhm.
weren't that excited that we were there. But there were also the vast majority of the natives down there were incredibly welcoming. They wanted to sort of share, their way of life with us. And it just really blew me away in terms of, seeing their powwows in person, the way
Mhm.
they still so genuinely cherish their traditions and their dances and the way they make their
Mhm.
dresses. And it just sort of opened my eyes to the fact that there are a lot of different things happening in the world that may not be as obvious to, someone who's, set on their everyday life, living their life, going to work every day.
Mhm.
It was an eye opener for me. And so that was sort of a moment that I look back on and I think, wow, without that, I would not be who I am today.
And you went back,
Wow, that
right?
I did. Yeah. I spent
Yeah.
2 different summers down there, a total of 4 months. We were living in a tent, and, I mean, it
mhm.
was life changing.
Yeah.
And I think that
Wow.
really shaped sort of a lot of my perspectives today. And it's made me incredibly grateful.
Wow, that touches me very deeply because my biological mom was Aboriginal, 100% Aboriginal.
Oh, that's
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
so cool.
so what touches me so specifically about what you said was that I was adopted by an amazing family, super supportive. Can't say enough good things about them at 18 months. So my mom grew up on a reserve, but because I didn't experience any of that, I don't know. I know very much less than what you know from your
Mhm.
experience with that. And there's a big part of me that would like to be able to share that part of my heritage with my kids.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's like very inspiring to me to know that some kind of immersion opportunity or just like to experience that is a possibility. And I'm actually going to remember to to make a serious effort to look
Oh,
into
that's
that after
fantastic.
Yeah.
tonight. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hunch that you won't regret it.
Yeah.
It'll be something that will be a very positive experience for you.
yes, absolutely. So thank you for actually bringing that forward for me again. So
Absolutely.
okay, so Marissa, what was a pivotal moment for you?
I don't have quite a good story like that, but I feel like just kind of in the entrepreneurial circles, right? You get to hear a lot about coaching and like, especially mindset
Mhm.
coaching. And I think just
Yes.
realizing how important your internal narrative is for how you show up in the world and how you create. Because I used to be very self critical about everything that I did. I wanted to be perfect. And I think that just starting to realize that the way I was talking to myself was not actually helping me accomplish the goals that I wanted to or put things out in the
Mm-hmm.
world. And so understanding that how you speak to yourself is so important and that you really have to surround yourself with positivity on just kind of all
Mm-hmm.
fronts. It that really made a difference for me. And I felt like it had such an impact on my ability to write and to, show up for our business. So I think that's probably one of the pillars.
That is huge. It's different from Steve's story, but that is like so important and so powerful. And I think that's really the biggest thing I had to learn, right? I think maybe one of you mentioned it kind of a little bit back in the interview, something about people, I think you just kind of said that people are not aware because they're just so used to their daily routine of going to work, coming home, doing the stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
And I think if I had to share one personal message, is kind of like what you said. It's like about the mindset, and things can change. And just because this is your experience, it doesn't mean that you have to continue thinking that way or doing things that way.
Exactly.
But it's not something that I don't think it's just out there as common knowledge. And I think it's such an important thing and an important lesson. And really, what you also said was like so impactful to me about how knowing that failure sometimes is part of the journey, especially as an entrepreneur, because it's like part of like learning what works and what doesn't work. And there are days where it feels like, oh, this is never going to take off. And then there are days like something clicks and it's like super awesome. And
Totally.
so I think that what you just said can't be shared enough. I totally, totally believe that. And I do truly hope that they will bring that forward in education for our kids, because I think it's more than just like the math and the reading and all the stuff. Like underline everything. It's like the mindset and the way you think about things. So Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So we're at question 7. Okay. So what is something that you thought that you would love, but you ended up not liking it at all?
I have a quick answer for that. Shrimp. I did not like shrimp, and I thought I would. So I was a vegan for a long time, and I recently became pescatarian. And so I was really excited to try shrimp in some pasta. And I tried it, and I realized that that is not for me.
Well, I kind of feel like there's shrimp people and there's non-shrimp people. It's kind of like an either
Totally.
or. You can't like shrimp a little bit.
But you tried it. That was the important part.
I know, exactly. Now you know. Okay, and Steve.
So for me, I'm gonna be bold, and I'm actually gonna use an Uno reverse card. And instead of something that I thought I would like but I didn't like, I'm gonna go with the opposite of that. And I'm gonna say something that I thought I wouldn't like, but I ended up liking. And this kind of connects back to the rafting, like I was talking about earlier, like I wasn't sure how it worked, and then I tried it and I loved it. And so there's this concept that has really sort of moved me over the past years, and that's understanding that some of the things that I love the most in life, I was initially apprehensive about or unimpressed with, or didn't really think that they were for me. And so I've got 3 things that I love now, and that's sushi, it's the Grateful Dead, and I'm forgetting the last item now. Let's see what it is. Fly fishing, which is related to the rafting. So all 3 of these things that I tried, I had to try more than once too. So the first time I ate sushi, I don't know, it tasted bad to me. And the second time, it still wasn't that great. And then all of a sudden, maybe a couple weeks after that second test, I was like, I'm craving sushi. Now it's probably my favorite food to eat. And it's just, it's mind-boggling to me that like, when I first tried it, I was basically putting myself in the category of, I don't like sushi. Like she was just talking about with shrimp. Like, I didn't think I liked sushi. Now it's one of my favorite things. Same thing with the Grateful Dead. It's an American rock band. They're well known for having very dedicated fans. And it's kind of music that you either like it or you don't. And when I first heard it, I didn't think I liked it. It was kind of unimpressive to me, a little boring. And now it's like, there's no other music that I'd rather listen to. So I just think it's really important for people to be willing to try new things, and to not just, when you try something new, in the first 5 minutes or the first bite of the food, be willing to say, okay, my initial reaction was not, overwhelming joy, but I'm going to give it more than one try, because there's a chance that it's an acquired taste. Like they always say, with wine, like, the first time you sip wine, almost nobody likes it, right? But if you're willing to give it a little bit more of a go, I think there's room for discovering something that you initially didn't think you would like, and now the next thing you know, it's life changing.
I think the Grateful Dead was the last concert that I went to before.
Did you guys go together?
Her along. I go every summer. I just love them. And finally, she says, "Okay, I'll go with you."
Our whole family went. It was really fun.
It was fantastic.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Bonding over Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
That is great, and that's great advice too, because I have to admit that I'm kind of like, if I don't like it at first, I'm pretty resistant to going back for more.
I was the same way. And that's why it's like I've really been embracing it, because I'm starting to understand. It's like, as I look back in hindsight, like, whoa, I'm glad I gave those things another chance.
Yeah. And what you might have wished that you tried again.
Totally.
Although shrimp, that's not going to happen for me.
You're pretty sure? You can't talk me into more tries. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. That is a cool answer. All right, so which one of you is the first person on the dance floor?
Between us, who's first? Oh, I feel like it depends on the situation. I feel like I tend to be the first person out, but sometimes he just gets in a dancing
Once
mood.
I come out of the shell, I mean, all bets are off. I have no holds bar for just letting it loose, Yeah,
because his wife, my sister-in-law, films him dancing and posts it to Instagram all the time. And if you want a good time and to laugh a bit, it's a good thing to watch.
I need to hop on Instagram for sure. I'm going to follow you right after this.
I'm a firm believer in the concept of dance like no one's watching.
Wow, that is super cool. Love it. You guys are pretty fun. I think you should add that into your site, a little bit of a dance break here.
Yeah, just a quick aside, we were talking about it earlier, that we're so happy that you dive into more than just the sort of nitty gritty business stuff. And don't get me wrong, the business stuff is great, and we're really passionate about our business. But I also think, we're kind of in a new age of, showing who you really are, and being vulnerable, and talking about, your passions or your worries or your fears. And I just really appreciate that, you provide a platform for people to sort of go into those things and talk about the stuff that matters, Yeah,
it's an age of connection that you're helping to create that
totally.
connection.
Well, thank you so much. And I have to say that I've worked with some really amazing mentors and business partners, but just with me, it's a lot about gut instinct and intuition and knowing that person, right? Yep. And I think there's so much offered now in terms of coaching, in terms of assistance, in terms of whatever business you want to look at, it's a Google away, right?
Yep.
So I think that it really comes down to knowing who you're working with, building that trust, and especially with something like what you guys are doing, like that you have a lot of really important life stuff on the plate. The legal stuff, if it's not checked and crossed off and stuff like that properly, then like as we said at the beginning, there can be a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Just I think it's so important to show the people behind what is going on in the business and know their story. And essentially, I truly believe that people buy on the feeling they get from someone and the connection that they have with someone, because businesses are abounding everywhere, right? You can just go to Google and find something, but it's about the connection, and that's truly what I believe. And you guys are awesome. You truly are very genuine, and it's very evident that you are client-based and you care about what's going on for people. So that is like amazing.
Yeah, we definitely
that is
like to connect.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's about connection, and I love that. So, and thank you for seeing what my vision is in terms of sharing entrepreneur stuff with the world. Because I think there's some really great people doing a lot of great things, and they just need to be showcased as much as possible. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what the next question is. Okay. So if you could share only one thing about yourself with other people, what would that be?
Oh, I feel like that's a great question.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, from my perspective, I think the most, so just something that I've learned and embraced and have found to be very powerful is this idea of being present in every moment. I
Mm,
think it's kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's easier to get wrapped up in your routine and sort of count the days down to the next vacation or whatever
The
it is.
mhm,
weekend.
And for me, something that has really brought me a lot of joy and gratitude in life is finding this zone where I'm appreciative of every moment. Like, you know, with coronavirus, we're working from home for months and months. Now I appreciate my little 15-minute commute to work. I try to
mhm.
appreciate the opportunity to go to work at all, you know? And so I just think,
Yes.
you know, I was telling my sister a little bit about this before, and that's this author. His name's Ram Dass. He has a book called Be Here Now that's really focused on
Mhm,
these kind of concepts. And I just think it's something that it's a tool that people can use to
mhm.
enhance their appreciation, their vitality, and their joy in life by really focusing on, you know, being present. And I think this is kind of like a lot of the concepts we've been talking about today, you know, sort of mindset, abundance, all these things.
Mhm.
It's something that is growing rapidly and people are becoming more and more appreciative. But for me, I know on a personal level, it's made a huge difference to sort of embrace this idea of being as present as possible.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think it's, well, for me, it's something I'm always working on. You know, I'm like thinking about what I need to do or what I
Right.
didn't do, or, you know what I mean? But just really, it's something I think that's so important. It does, like you say, bring you back to gratitude and awareness and appreciation. And I just think that's so important. And it's constantly something that it's a daily thing for me that I do. Um, work on.
Me
So
too.
I think that's like a really great thing to share. Thank you.
It's a great practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yes. Okay, so Marissa, what is one thing that you would share about you?
I think I would share my ability to perceive beauty in the world. I'm kind of a poet too, like on the side, a moonlight poet.
Oh, wow.
But
Are you also on Instagram?
I am on Instagram, but not for my poetry. But
But you
Oh,
will.
I will. I'm
she will be
working on
now.
it to be published soon, so that'll be exciting. But I think one of the things that I'm so excited about and just constantly inspired by is just life itself. Like the physical,
Mm,
phenomenal world is so astounding to me. Like how the pigeon, the most innocuous bird, like so strange and weird, but they can actually perceive more color than we can, which I think
oh,
is,
wow. I didn't know that.
yeah. And like there are so many things. I mean, your tongue has enough nerve endings that you could teach it to read Braille. How
Wow.
that, right?
Wow.
Like,
That is
there's so many
amazing.
things.
Yep.
Yeah, like I
Yes.
don't know, just the way the mind has shaped itself to be able to perceive the world and develop language and communicate with so many other people, and then create machines that then can go in and look at the brain. I mean, it just constantly blows my mind all
Totally.
the time. So I think I should.
Absolutely. Sometimes, I'm just like, how did everything come to be? Like,
Right.
even just for me, it's like, how did I meet this person, or how did this thing happen, or I get it, or just like, simple things. Like we've got little tiny buds coming outside finally. I don't know how what the weather is there, but it just feels
Same thing.
like
Yeah.
like, well, how did you guys survive the winter and you're popping back up and stuff like that? So
Yep.
I totally hear what you're saying. It's like really very wondrous. It's
Yeah,
like, how did
Absolutely.
we get to like this level of technology where I'm talking to you tonight?
I
Right.
know. It's crazy.
So amazing. I love that. Thank you. um, What is your favorite word and why? And what is your least favorite word and why?
I have a good answer for that.
Okay.
Pre-brag. My favorite word, it's lethologica, and it's when you forget the word that you're trying to say. And
oh my gosh.
part of the reason why I love that is because the etymology, which is like the history of the word, is Lethe, which is the river in Greek mythology that shades would have to cross to get to the underworld. And when they would cross it, they would lose their memories. And so I think
that's so magical.
Yeah.
I love that. So how do you spell that? I'm writing this down.
It's LethelogicA, I think.
Oh, wow. Words are a huge passion of mine, so I love that story. I love the magic and the mystic and the little bit of woo. That's so cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Us too. We're on that same level.
Yeah.
We both love language too, and we love the woo. So
yeah,
all about it.
He's really into linguistics. I'm really into semiology and philosophy. So yeah, we're all there with you.
Oh, that is so awesome. Okay, so what about your least favorite word?
I could not think of one. I feel like I'm okay with a lot of the words that people hate. Like he was gonna say moist, and I know people hate the word, but I think it's
okay. It's not fully wet, but it's still like wet enough to like be uncomfortable. Like no. I'm just
you know what that reminds me of?
What?
That reminds me of that feeling of when you're walking out the first thing in the morning in the summer and the grass is kind of wet and sticky.
Yep.
That feeling between your toes and sandals.
Yep.
See, I kind of like that. You're walking on the grass. Yeah.
You have a very positive
We're
attitude.
Connecting.
Well, I can relate to your little apprehension about moist. I'll give you that. Okay, so how about your favorite word?
My favorite word is grateful. And we've kind of been talking about it, and this word like comes up in my life a lot. Like obviously I was talking about, my favorite band is the Grateful Dead, but also just this idea of being grateful and gratitude, kind of like, being mindful and being present. When you are in the position to take a step back and, you're frustrated or overwhelmed, whatever it is, and then you can, kind of get this bird's eye view for a second and say, okay, wait, what am I grateful for in my life? What are the things that I have that bring me joy? The next thing you know, the whole thing is sort of flipped around, and you're saying, well, rather than being frustrated or overwhelmed, I have a lot to be grateful for. And it really goes back to this sort of theme that we keep coming back to over and over again, and it's mindset. Obviously, almost every person, maybe every person ever, is going to have sort of difficult or intrusive thoughts. But at the same time, I truly believe we have the power to sort of guide our thoughts or control them a little bit. And so you have the opportunity to say, okay, I'm feeling like life's a lot right now, but I know there are certain steps I can take to sort of mitigate that. It's not an end all be all. You can't just start being grateful and all your problems go away. That's not the point. But I really do believe that it's such a powerful tool to sort of reset a little bit. And I just think it's incredibly, almost a big coincidence that it also happens to be such like the prominent part of this band that I love. And so it just all sort of fits together in a nice and neat way for me.
It is kind of the closest thing to like an instantaneous vibrational shift that you can
absolutely have. I'm blown away by the power of it. Even being aware of this, I still I'll get frustrated, and then I'll sort of like think like, oh well, maybe I should think of the things I'm grateful for, and then my overwhelmed side is like, no, I want to stay overwhelmed, but then I force myself to do it, and I'm just like, wow, like this is mind-blowing. It's so powerful. So I just love the concept of it.
Oh, and I love that so much, and I could not agree with you more. And I actually have I've got my own Facebook group, and ironically or serendipitously perhaps, this week I'm hosting a gratitude challenge for exactly the reason.
Way, that's awesome. Some synchronicity for you.
There is some
synchronicity, yes, because what I love about grateful are all the things that you just said, and the exactly what you said is just that when you actually are aware and stepping into that energy, you can't feel fear, doubt. You can't feel anything except, I think it's the closest vibration to love for your life, right?
Definitely.
Love is like super powerful, and grateful is right there. And absolutely, I think it's a very important mindful practice every single day. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally feel that. Love that.
Come sign up for your
Great
challenge.
connections. Yeah, totally.
Oh, yay. Yeah. Part of it's posting a live about what you're doing. So I will totally invite you to that.
Yeah, I'd love to join that. Yeah.
So super awesome. Okay. Do you fight fair in an argument?
So I love this question because, as a lawyer, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, with lawyers oftentimes sort of exaggerating or bending the truth. And so for me, I'm all about fighting fair. Like, I love the idea of, if we're going to have a debate or an argument, let's lay down the ground rules and let's try and do our best to sort of stay within those confines. Because I really believe, if you have an argument that is logically sound and persuasive, you shouldn't need to go, fight unfair or use dirty tactics, bringing in, personal attacks or anything like that. Like, and if you do feel compelled to sort of fight unfair, then maybe it's time to re-examine your argument. Maybe there's a reason why you feel like you need to, do something that might be unfair, because maybe the argument isn't as strong as you thought it was.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I agree with you. Kind of feel sometimes once you get to that point, it's already over, right?
Right.
You're
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
like
Absolutely.
trying to use force instead of, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and especially with attorneys, they're taught so much the structure of proper arguments. And I think sometimes when you get like emotionally heated, it's hard to to stay in that realm. But I feel like for me, we're all, our whole family is really into personal development. And so for
Wow.
me, I I do fight fair, but I think one of the things that has been really pivotal for me in learning how to argue productively is realizing that the other person isn't against you. They're not attacking you. It's really learning how to recognize, okay, there's an issue that needs to be solved and we can solve it together. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned over the last.
It doesn't have to be negative or confrontational. It can be
Yeah.
genuinely working to figure out the best way to move forward, and
Yeah.
I think the other half of this too isn't just from the perspective of being an arguer, but also taking a step back and saying, could I be wrong? Or, being able and willing to be teachable, or being open to other ideas, and not just being so, seated in your own perspective and your own belief that you can say, hey, maybe I am wrong, or maybe this is a better way of doing things. I think that's a great way to set yourself up to move forward, personal development, become the best person you can be. To me, it starts with being open and being fair.
Yeah, well, and it creates such a combination too, because even though the whole logical side is so important, in copywriting and marketing and essentially learning about persuasion, we know that people are more persuaded by emotion. And so you really have to tap into the emotion of the other person and try to understand where they're coming from and how this happened. And I think so it's kind of a cool combination of learning how to do both.
Exactly. I think that's like so powerful, and it's like a huge lesson if people can really get to that place. It's going to be such a nicer, well, it sounds cliche, but it's going to be such a nicer world. And it's just like so much more empowered, right? Because there's so many perspectives and no one is really right or wrong. It's just understanding. So I love that. So your parents like taught you guys the fundamentals of personal development. That's so amazing, because you're both so much, honestly, I was excited to have you guys here, but I didn't expect this level of mindfulness and the little bit of woo I love and all that stuff. You guys are like,
yeah, we're on the same level.
Crazy surprise.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's funny because our dad is an attorney and our mom, she's done kind of a lot of things. She was in real estate and accounting, but she's also very spiritual. And so they both have always been really into personal development. Like, we were reading Tony Robbins at like 10. So it's
Wow.
always part of our lives, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. And that's like something I really want to instill in my own kids, because as we talked about before, I just don't think it's something that's generally taught.
Yeah.
I think I personally kind of just stumbled upon it myself in a way.
Oh, how it's kind of fortuitous though.
Pardon me?
It's very fortuitous that you.
Oh, yes. Yes. So yeah, I love it. So that's amazing. I love that story.
Yeah.
Okay. Who in history would you want to help or stop?
Oh, this is also hard.
So for me, I had to think about this a little bit, and I had a bunch of different potential answers. But a guy that keeps coming back to me is just Julius Caesar. We just passed the Ides of March, when he got stabbed. And I just feel like, Julius Caesar was really trying his best. I know the senators were really worried about, the concentration of power and becoming a dictator. But I just feel like, we're talking about fighting fair in arguments. Couldn't they have sort of aired their grievances with him? Couldn't they have said, Julius, you're getting a little too powerful. Can we take a step back here? Instead of stabbing him in the back, I just feel like that was a really drastic move. And so, if
it was a little harsh.
I'm talking to those senators, I'm saying, guys, there's got to be a better way to fix this. Like, we don't need to stab him in the back. Like that's not how we solve problems.
Exactly. I love that. So who knows what would have happened had that taken place.
Different world.
It would have been a different world.
It would have. So I like that. Yes. Reminds me of Timeless.
Yeah.
I feel like I would go back and really try to help people who establish the education system, because I think there's so much room for us to grow and change there. I have a background in education, so I definitely agree with you when you're saying, it's not just about math and it's not just about literature.
They should teach mindfulness.
They do need to teach mindfulness and yoga and all of it, like personal growth and really how to manage your own mind and how to maintain your own happiness and how to find that in the first place. Because it's so confusing when you get out of high school or college and you're kind of just thrown into this world and you're like, this is not what they taught me.
No, exactly. The formula was like, go to school, study, get a job, and it's all going to be like, sunshine and roses.
It works itself out. You don't have to worry about anything else. Like, that could be further from the truth.
Yeah. Well, and even in interpersonal relationships, like learning how to move past things, like in arguments, or even like how to have healthy relationships where you understand the other person on an intimate level. I think it's so important, and it's not taught at like a wide enough and a young enough level. I think that would make a big difference.
Totally.
I think that is so phenomenal, and I agree with you so much. My 12-year-old daughter I'm sure COVID's not helping, but she is just going through some stuff and dealing with some anxiety and trying to sort of implement that with her. It's just like looking back, I think, should have probably started really, well, I don't think I discovered it early enough myself, but just to really like maybe started it when they're like being taught like words, why not teach mindset?
Yeah.
I totally think that is so phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, and it's cool to see it in place. One of my friends he's a 4-year-old son, and she's really teaching him how to like when he gets really upset and in that like angry state of just not listening to anything, she really taught him how to count to 10 and breathe. And it is wild to watch that transformation.
Wow.
Because I'm not around kids that often, and so when one throws a tantrum, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
You like run away.
Yeah. But the way she was able to teach him to just slow the body down and really take a breath and realize that it's not the end of the world. And I think that really helped.
That is so powerful. I love both your answers. Awesome. Okay, so this is a little more fun. Not so much thought, I think. Sweet or sour candy or completely salty snacks?
Oh, sweet all the way for me.
I like to combine the sweet and the salty. So like,
they have
like I can't remember what it's called, but there's like a cream-filled bar that's like surrounded by nuts. Like I love the contrast of salty and sweet together. It's just like so satisfying.
No. Cool. And so like when you say sweet, Marissa, do you mean like I don't know, like gummy
Everything's
bear
sweet.
sweet or like chocolate sweet or what kind of sweet or just sweet?
Well, I do like chocolate, but I'm a Skittles girl. I love the wild berry
Oh,
Skittles.
Classic.
Skittles.
Actually, when we were kids, he won some Skittles, some wild berry Skittles at
Oh.
Big jar of
A
them.
big
It was one
jar.
of those contests where you like have to guess how
them.
many are in there.
Uh-huh.
My guess was the closest, but I don't really like Skittles. So the big jar of Skittles was just sitting in my room. And you know,
Oh.
I'm not really noticing it, not paying much attention to it, but you know, it's almost full. And then
Yes.
one day I look at it and it's like it's half full. And I'm thinking, who's eating my Skittles? Wait, I know who's eating my Skittles.
I would sneak into the room and steal Skittles because I
Oh.
loved them so much, and I thought he was eating them too. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna.
That is so cool. I actually don't think we have wild berry Skittles in Canada.
Oh, really?
I will ship you some because they are worth it.
On the way.
Yeah.
They sound like an adventure for sure. Awesome. Okay, so the last question is, what fictional place do you wish that you could visit?
That's a good question.
So my answer is Westeros from Game of Thrones. And
Oh.
yeah, you know, I'm thinking about this and it's like, as a rich and, you know, developed world as it was also pretty dangerous. So part of me is like, yeah, maybe I need some like armor if I'm going to go to Westeros. But I just love how he created such like a relatable world. I wasn't a big fan of how the show ended, but I just connected so much with like the character and the sort of dynamic way he was able to bring about like this sort of pseudo reality. Like there's a lot of contrast with actual historical figures, but then there's also this magic element and dragons. And I was just blown away by the world building. So if I could go one place, that's definitely where I'd go.
Oh, super cool. For sure.
I would go to Hogwarts. Big Harry Potter fan.
Oh,
Good one.
Love magic. But I would also really like to go to Downton Abbey.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
oh,
Wow.
yes, yes.
elegant. I mean, there are definitely some problems with that world, but you know, I love the idea of like getting dressed up for dinner and you know.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I always wanted to go to high tea.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
That is so cool. And from both your answers, it gets that you guys are as much as logical, practical business people. You both believe in magic, and I love that.
Absolutely. Totally.
I think that's kind of, well, personally for me, that's the whole point in life, right? You have to find the magic in everything.
Absolutely.
Well,
There's just
it
so
seems
much we
so.
don't know, you know, and
Yes.
I think we're getting a better and better grasp of sort of how reality works. But I also just think that it's a folly to assume that like we know it all or we really understand the sort of inner workings of our reality, the universe. I just think that, you know, there's been enough things that have happened in my life that I have no doubt that there's this sort of other level, you know. I'm hesitant to call it like paranormal. I think magic is a good word, but it's just clear to me that there's like something beyond, you know, or our sort of tangible reality.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree, and I love that. There's just so many things you can't explain, and you don't really want to, right? Sometimes you just don't know exactly why, and it's just like perfect that way.
Yeah, I love that, and I love embracing it too. You know, I think there's this tension. Sometimes it's like we want to know everything, but at the same time, it's like it's good that we don't know everything.
Right.
You know?
Well, and one
Exactly.
of my favorite quotes from Emmanuel Levinas, he studied phenomenology, but it's infinity overflows the thought that thinks it, and I think that's so true. That
Totally.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I
mine
love
will.
that so much.
Yeah.
Can I borrow that? I think I need to post that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'll share it.
That is amazing. Well, it's been so phenomenal to have you guys here tonight.
We've
I
had
learned
so
so
much
much.
fun.
Yeah. thank
I
you.
honestly, you truly exceeded expectations, both in what you're doing and you're just like such full package, big picture people. I expected to be like very like legal, a little bit of fun, but I didn't expect all the magic. So it's been phenomenal. You guys are amazing. So I'm like so
Well, we
excited
feel
about
the
what you're
same
doing.
way about you. Like it
Yeah.
was just such a wonderful experience. I think, this is our first time being on a podcast, and I can't speak for her, but
Yeah.
I loved it, and
Yeah,
we're just
I
so
did too.
excited to grow and grow, with you. And who knows, maybe in a year or two we can come back on and talk
Yeah.
about things we've learned in the meantime.
No,
Or I don't know.
absolutely. I'm already
Right?
would love to invite you to speak on my group just because it's filled with entrepreneurs and I'm pretty sure
Totally.
they can use what you're offering in terms of the packages for sure. And mindset also. Guys can also speak to that. So super cool. Definitely want to
Absolutely.
keep in
We'd
touch
love
with
to.
you.
Yeah, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Is there anything else you guys would like to share? Anything cool, quotes, magic?
Just expressing gratitude for me.
Yeah, same. We're so grateful to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yeah, so we will looking forward to connecting with you again very, very soon.
Thank you so
Definitely.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
By my side, try to ride